Hey, welcome back to our podcast, your go-to source for all things real estate and lifestyle in the heart of Fort Worth, Texas. I'm Jackson Christian Berry.
And I'm Jean Kristen Berry.
And together, we're here to guide you through the vibrant world of Fort Worth and surrounding suburb living.
We believe in creating a community where everyone feels at home. And that's why we're committed to bringing you honest, expert advice in a fun and friendly way. From the bustling streets of downtown to the serene suburbs, we've got the scoop on what makes each area unique.
Each week, we'll dive into the latest market trends, offer tips for both buyers and sellers, and share insider knowledge to help you make informed decisions. So whether you're a first-time home buyer, a seasoned investor, or just curious about some of the Fort Worth charming neighborhoods, you're in the right place. Let's jump into today's episode. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Welcome Home Fort Worth. This is our June edition of the market update. So this is what is happening in the Tarrant, Johnson, a little bit of Parker, a little bit of Ellis County area, okay? As we do each and every week, we have two disclaimers we always like to start off with. Real estate, guess what it is?
Hyperlocal.
Hey, nailed it. Hope you answered in your car, wherever you're listening to this as well, in that blank space. Real estate's hyperlocal, and what that means is very simply that this is a generalization of what is happening in our general area. However, your neighborhood may be experiencing the higher end of these stats or the lower end of these stats, depending on where you are. So if you want to know what's actually happening in your market, in your local marketplace, you got to talk to somebody like us. Fun fact, I just found this out. You actually literally have to talk to somebody like us as a real estate agent because
Yes.
Zillow, okay, this is very interesting to me. I just found this out. Zillow, so Texas is what's called a non-disclosure state. Okay, we've known this. We've known what that means. It means that you don't have to disclose home values. And you can't disclose home values unless the homeowner does it themselves, correct? And so we always talk to homeowners when they close on their home sale and they say, hey, you're going to get a little, notification in the mail from the county asking to, know what your home value is. You don't have to fill that out. Can if you want to, you don't have to. Zillow does not have access to closed sales because in Texas, because of it being a non-disclosure state, they do their algorithm based on other things that we track on the market, on the competition side. But fun fact, so really, we'd love to help you know this because we actually are licensed to be able to share this information with you. So, sorry, fun fact that I just remembered up as I was talking about that. So that's number one, hyperlocal. Just know that. Number two, again, like we mentioned at the top of the show, this is for Tarrant, Johnson, a little bit of Parker, a little bit of Ellis. If you find yourself in those areas, I hope this is helpful for you. It's going to be a little more in depth than what you'd find on a major news outlet talking about the real estate market.
And more specific.
And more specific. Yeah. So we always structure this in the specific way. We like to talk real estate is economics at its basis. So it is supply and demand. Okay. With supply and demand, supply is really the nature of sellers and what somebody who is being a home seller would experience in the market. Supply is going to be the biggest, supply and demand both affected, but it's the amount of houses. The houses are the supply, the buyers are the demand, right? And so we structure this in talking about seller-specific, supply-specific things, and then we get into demand-specific things, and then we kind of talk about the crossover and what it means for somebody in today's market. Cool?
Yep.
Cool beans?
Yep. That's
Same
what it's about.
page? Capiche?
Let's do it.
All right, jumping in. Okay, so jumping in quickly, number of new listings is down. So number of new listings that come on the market dropped 36% month over month and is down 24% year over year. Down
It's a really big number.
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
May was 3,612 new listings that came on the market in the month of May. We're down to 2,647. So that's a pretty sizable drop in new listings. And kind of odd, honestly, to see this sizable of a drop this time of the year in June. Our May, June, and July is traditionally are big new listing months. Now, they do usually peak out in May. Every year kind of has a different one. Sometimes it's May, sometimes it's June, sometimes it's July. It just kind of depends. This one, we just saw it in May. Everybody waited until May, threw it out there.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of sitting back and saying, okay, now we're, marketing. So very interesting what's going on.
What do we think about that?
Well, okay, hold on. We got to talk through a couple more stats.
Okay, and then we'll come around to that.
What I think this means for you and why you should care about the new listings coming on the market. Yep. It means people are staying in their houses longer. Not as many people are selling. People put their houses. I mean, we've had higher months of new listings since March of this year. In fact, no, we've had it since the month of February this year. We've had higher new listings in this month. Now,
Yeah.
we're filming this 2 days before the end of June. Okay. So with that in mind too, like we could get a couple more, but I don't see this ramping up
Substantial.
massively in those
Yeah.
2 days, right? We might get a little bit above like February's number, which was 2,813, right? We may get above that, but we're not going to be massively higher than that. So we're still seeing a drop in new listings between at least May and June, if not April and June as well.
Yeah, because if you look at the graph, I mean, that is a really big dip.
It's a huge dip.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether it's due to, we had a bunch of them come on early and now people are done, or whether it's people are seeing houses sit a little longer and they're nervous and waiting.
Yep. Well, and this is, there's so much we could get into here with this, just this stat alone. There's a lot of things that are going to build off of this as we go deeper into this market update. Talking about what people are thinking, you're exactly right. I mean, we'll talk about it as we go into this. Homes are sitting longer. Now, let's just jump into this. Hold on.
But not 8 months.
Well, they're not 8 months, but it's back to a normal market,
Yeah,
which is
it is.
really. I have a stat that I'm going to show you all today that shows us specifically that we are 1% away from an average real estate market.
Oh, here we go.
1% away.
Okay.
From an average.
It's getting balanced.
Yeah, a very balanced real estate market.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, just to wrap up that talk about new listings. Psychology is changing right now. In my opinion, the perception of the real estate market in our area, people are seeing houses sit longer. People are seeing less buyers in the market. People are seeing, it doesn't, this year, what's shocking to me, last year was the bottom of new listings data, but this year, I feel like demand has continued to go down this year compared to last year.
Sure.
And that's been really interesting to watch. Interest rates are not too different from where they were last year.
Yeah.
But demand has really plummeted this year. And what I think that is, people are getting accustomed to the idea that these rates are here to stay.
Yeah.
And they're here for longer, higher for longer. I think people are just becoming accustomed to that concept. And so that has affected their buying decisions, right?
Right.
And
They're really assessing,
Yes.
do I need to move?
Yes.
Do I have to move? Do I want to move? Yeah.
So, and the Fed's been kind of wishy-washy. They've not truly been. The Fed chairman talked about doing 3 rate cuts this year at the beginning of the year. They have since not rescinded that, but they've said something different now, which is like maybe 1 cut this year, right? So those things are all just what's happening in the marketplace and what's kind of changing. And then, of course, you have unaffordability, record appreciation rates, all that kind of stuff. We'll get into all that later. But again, number of new listings is down. Maybe down. All right, so
Sing it.
active listings as a result of the demand we just mentioned. We haven't seen this yet in the data. I do have a data point that shows this. Active listings are up, and they continue to be up since basically January of this year, and higher than last year, which is what I really want to point out. We are way higher than last year in active supply. So the amount of homes on the market, we have more this year than last year. So
Due to kind of sitting?
due to demand. So we don't see, like, homes are just sitting for longer. I'll show you about days on market. It's not too crazy days on market, but homes are sitting on longer. Homes are, the absorption rate, we'll get into that in a little bit. The amount of homes coming off the market each and every month and closing each and every month, all of that is showing that more homes are staying on for longer. Okay. So, and this is what we're seeing. It's just creeping up. Last year we were at 4,958 homes on the market. This year we're at 7,002, y'all. That's 3,000, just about, really 2,000 more. 2004, I think is what that is. No, anyways, 2,000 more homes than we had last year. And so that erodes a seller's power. And that's what I'm going to show you in just a second. The more houses on the market, sellers' ability to kind of own the market is being eroded by the fact that more houses are out there to choose from.
Because it's not a seller's market
Exactly.
like it was.
Yep.
It's more balanced.
It's way more balanced. Now, it's still technically 1% on this side, and I'll show you the data point in just a second.
And we see that in some neighborhoods, don't we? Like
Absolutely
every
we
once
do.
in a while, you'll see like this house goes kabam.
Yes, absolutely we do.
Yeah.
And you see that. Oh my gosh, you see that. This is like, if you are somebody who owns a house who is considering it this year, the thing I just cannot stress to you enough is pricing. Like, you see it in pricing, and you see it honestly in my industry, in our industry, which is real estate agents. Real estate agents have to have their comps down.
Yeah.
You have to practice. You have to be somebody who takes your comps seriously. It's not just a wishy-washy estimate. You have to both give them a real estimate of what their home, and when the seller, all sellers do this, If you didn't know they do this, they do this. All sellers always ask, well, if I'm advising them at 450, they're going to go, well, I think we should go 470, right? They're always going to do that. And it's their home sale, they can do whatever they want to do. They're the client, of course. But you have to have conversations to say, look what I'm seeing in the marketplace, and look what's happening to folks who price in this way. Look how long they're sitting. Look how many price cuts they're still having to do anyways after staying on the market.
We are seeing a lot of price
We're
cuts.
seeing a lot of price cuts.
Tons and tons. And I would say a subtitle to that, to pricing it right, is condition. So because it's so balanced and they have more to choose from, and buyers have a lot more to choose from, you've got to have your home in good condition.
We've seen, so I feel like the old homage, maybe in the way you thought about it in 2021, if you didn't have old homage 3 or 4 years ago, whatever, not very old, obviously, but in the market that's real fresh on people's minds, right? In that market, you saw, in my opinion, like even if a house was beat up, as long as they priced it right, it still got sold, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the case, but that's a way more extreme now case, right? Like rather than going, 20K below or something like that to accommodate for, destroyed cabinets or stuff like that. You've got to, I think, just judging from what I'm seeing sitting on the market, I think you've got to go closer to 50 to 60K under value, if not more than that, honestly. Just to even get buyers to come in the door, they may not even bite on that. And they're probably still going to offer you less if your home really is beat up. So condition now isn't a preference. Condition now is we've got to make sure your home is sellable.
Do the most you can do. Otherwise, it's going to sit, and you're not going to get the money that you want.
Or you go to investors, and we've seen some people do that as well.
Sure.
Investors are easy. Now, just pro tip here while we're talking about it. Investors, make sure you always get multiple offers, right? So there are multiple systems that exist out there that ensure that your house gets in front of as many investors as possible. Don't go with the one investor who just kind of called you and gave you an offer, or with Orchard or Open Door, places like that.
Shopping.
Just make sure you shop for it. That's my point.
Yeah, do like a investor MLS.
Yes.
And there's ways to do that.
Yes, there is.
If you want to know, just holler at us.
Yeah, we got your back. So, yes. What else do we need to talk about? So those active listings are up. We are up 9% month over month, and this is the big one, and this is what I want people to hear. 41% year over year, we are up in active listings. Okay.
Oh, that's big.
That's a huge increase. And that has, as real estate professionals who are in the market every day, working in it, trying to help people buy and sell real estate, we see this. This is what we feel.
We feel it.
And this is the thing that I have a client of mine right now, a dear friend of mine who is, he had his property listed last year. During this, and we have it listed now because it fell out as a horrible thing. What is so fascinating to see with this experience is for him, it's really been a learning curve. Why is this market so different? What has changed? Because it has changed drastically since last year than this year. And there hasn't been any huge changes with his property. And so he's simply just experiencing in a very real way this statistic here, which is the up 41%. There's 41% more competition this year for your home when it's listed. And we'll get into this later. There's a lot less demand. And in fact, I think this is our next stat. This is our next stat. Y'all, this is the other shocking news. The number of sales is down 66% month over month.
From last month.
71% year over year.
This time last year. Okay.
Dramatic drop in sales.
So they're really not going off the market.
Dramatic drop in sales. Again, we have some variance. There may be a little spike, that I should say spike. There may be some, increase in this. We're doing this a little bit earlier in June. There will be some sales that get posted in between now and the close of June. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be almost 1,000 sales in the next couple of days. It's not going to be that drastic.
Right. I would say to you guys out there that make sure and take a look at these graphics that Jackson put together, because when you see it visually, how big of a drop that is from month over month, it's a pretty big drop.
We are in the middle of June. In fact, this is June. So we have completed June, excuse me. So we've completed June. We've been through June, the middle of what is traditionally the high season of real estate. And you have sales that are likened to January of 2024 sales. January 2024 was 1,277 closed sales that month. This month we have 1,460, right?
January of 24?
Yeah, 2024. Okay. So January of this year, everybody,
which is low,
which is our low season.
Yeah,
we just hit low. We're slightly above still, of course, but we're likened demand wise, closing wise, activity wise to January in the middle of summer. What's happening? Like, that's crazy. So this is my point of like, this is a dramatically different market. And look, I'm just going to do a quick plug for real estate agents, whether it's us or whoever. You have to have somebody who knows this data,
right,
and can explain it to you. If they're just saying, well, it feels like this, you have to have somebody who can explain this to you, because this is what data is showing us. It needs to be a more serious conversation when we talk to you about pricing right now, because pricing, like, we don't have as much variance. In fact, we don't have any variance, quite frankly. We don't have any variance in your pricing. We have to not only price it right the first time, and we need to be tracking to make sure and ensure on the back end that we did price it effectively. So highly recommend a real estate professional to help you navigate this time. Seller contributions. So this is considered, you've heard of this as concessions. This is the seller giving money towards closing costs, things like that, right? I like to track this number just because it's good to know perspective for people who get into the market.
Right.
We saw this go down, so there have been less contributions. Now, again, we saw closings go down, so keep that in mind. We've seen less concessions, 879, which is 60% of all closed sales, okay? Last month in May, we had 968 concessions, and they were 80% of all sales. So last month was a lot. But we track pretty much above 50% on all. I've been tracking this number since March, basically, of this year. And we track pretty above 50% of all sales in our area have concessions, which is interesting.
So that's just another signal that it is becoming more of it's leaning more towards the buyers.
Yeah. And I mean, absolutely. Yeah. The thing I would say is this is one of those moments where this is, I would describe this. I think you're right. I think you'll see, but I think that there is a piece of this that is just like not culturally, but locally what happens. Like, this is just part of our real estate environment in this area. In 2021, I'll go find the stats for next week. It'd be interesting to know what 2021 was like concession wise, because I still think there were concession asks during that time, because that's when somebody asks for a concession, right? It's usually during the contract, it's post inspection, right? There's a reason for it at that point.
Right.
So for me, you got 50% of buyer's agents who are doing a good job, right? Because they're negotiating with the seller to say, hey, based on these things we found in the inspection report, here's what's up, right? We need some compensation for these things, right?
You know, a neat stat to see, I don't know how we'd pull it, would be to see multiple offers. So scenarios.
That's I've tried that. Yeah. The only way to do it is to search for multiple offers in the description or private remarks, and that's not a consistent way to really show that.
Because that would decrease your contributions that you asked for, because you knew that there was another buyer on the side.
See, my point is saying that I don't agree with that personally.
Yeah.
Just because I agree, like, if you had multiple offers, let's say you had 3 offers, right? And they were all great offers as a seller. You took one, they went to inspection, they showed you why they're asking for the concessions. Your agent hopefully helped you navigate to say, hey, these things are petty for sure. But hey, these things, we're going to get flagged from all of those other buyers, right? So there are things that exist in that moment, I feel like, that it doesn't matter if there were multiple offers on the front end. The seller can say no and just go find another person. But when an inspection has been done and is involved, I feel like the seller understands, I'm going to get asked this from any of those buyers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's my point. It's like, I think it's less, I think concessions speak more to the way that we do transactions in this area than demand. Now, do I think it goes down when there are multiple offers? Yes.
Because the general mindset is different.
Do I think it's less? Yes. But like, if your house was going to get flagged for a foundation, or something, it doesn't matter that there were multiple offers, because as a seller, I didn't know that, but now I know that. And so now I've got to adjust my process based on that, right? Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. I think that there's probably some mindset differences now, and buyers are hearing more that there are deals out there that they can get more from a seller. So I think that they're asking for a lot more.
Yeah, I think they're up for sure. Yeah. Definitely agree on up. I just think that, I don't think they're going to, I think they'll always be around. I don't think it's going to be like 0% or 20.
Because there's houses that need stuff done to them.
But what I'm saying is, like, even below 30%, right? Like, the buyer will feel indebted to you if you pick their offer out of a multiple offer scenario as a seller, for sure. And that's going to help them. But if something comes up in an inspection, you're going to need to, if it's a big ticket item. That's what I'm talking about.
Sure.
If it's something that
It's
is
something
like
little.
that damages the value of your home, then that's going to be something you have to deal with no matter what. Is my point. So
Well, we may have had a lot more people who were just selling kind of homes that needed more stuff done to them.
it could be. I think right now the reason that concessions is up is like what you're saying is that buyers have more power in this market right now. So
They're asking for more.
yeah.
Hey everyone, real quick before we get back to the show, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, we'd love to connect with you. We post a lot of content like this in case you miss an episode, along with more Fort Worth and surrounding suburb local insights and finds. You can find our team at the Christenberry Group on all social platforms, or you can connect with Jackson and I personally on our Facebook and our Instagram accounts. Just be prepared for lots of pictures of my grandson on either account. Now back to the show.
All right. Close price average. Fun fact, random fact. We did have a bump in close price, average close price.
Yeah.
So your average close price is up 4.7% month over month. That's up 7.3% year over year. Went up from last month at 458 to now this month at 480.
Which means real estate is still a good investment.
It's a fantastic investment. It is not. This reminds me of short stocks or oh gosh, what's the phrase for that? The day trading. Day trading.
Oh yeah.
This reminds me of day trading. I wouldn't treat real estate like this.
No.
Don't go into real estate buying 1 month unless you're a fix and flipper, and obviously your numbers gotta be right. But like if you're the average homeowner, don't go buy it 1 month and try to sell it the next month.
Yeah.
Like this, spike in
Give it some time.
yeah, this spike in value. I mean, it's
minor.
Yeah, it's minor, and you don't see that dramatically over time if you look back over the other stats that we've got there. So, but just a fun little fact. I don't attribute personally any value to this. If anything, I think what this is since this pulls the average close price. I think this is just there is less. There are less closings, and so I think it's easier for a luxury property that gets pulled up in this
pull up the average.
to pull up the average. I think there's less options and so less data points, and so it kind of gets pulled a little bit. That's what I think that is. But I don't know that. I mean, maybe we all just had $22,000 worth of appreciation on our home last month. Like, you list your home right now.
Yeah, right this minute.
I don't think that's the case. So. Okay, so the data point that I've been teasing the whole episode is absorption rate. Now, you've heard this as days on market, or sorry, not days on market, months of supply is what it's the same statistic here. I track the number versus our system lets us track months of supply. It doesn't do it right, and so I like tracking the actual number where I can calculate it myself. So if you look, we have since the month of March, gone down every single month. Closer from a real seller's market in March of 2024 to now an almost balanced market in June. So this is a big shift, and I think this is the data point that I would talk to you about.
Yeah.
If you were saying, well, Jackson, I'm a seller. There's still little homes out there. Supply is at an all-time low, which is not, but supply is low or whatever. I've got all the power. I would show you this and say, yes, you technically do still have the power because anything above 20% is considered a seller's market, but 20 to 15% is balance. Anything in 20 to 15% is considered balance in balanced market, and 15% or less is a buyer's market. So we are tracking and trending towards a buyer's market. Now, do I think we're going to get there? No. Do I think we're going to reach a buyer's market 15%? That'd be crazy if we do that. It's possible. But
our inventory is still so low, though, for what you would think.
I would think. So I don't see that happening, but that is certainly a possibility. Again, March was 39%, April's 31%, May was 26%, and this month was 21%. So we have just consistently, there have been less sales, less homes going off the market than those coming on, right? Only 21% of the homes on the market are going off the market. So does it make sense?
Yep.
So I think that is that's descriptive of what it feels like to be in today's market.
Yeah, definitely.
And to be selling your house or buying a house, because we've been talking about sellers, buyers, you are gaining power. For you, this metric is the opposite of what I just talked about for sellers.
Right.
Your buying power is going up pretty dramatically. You have gained the ability to, whether you have more options on the market, 7,000 versus 4,000 or 5,000 last year. You have more options on the market. Homes are sitting longer. Not as many people are giving concessions as last month, but you still have a decent amount of concessions going on, right? And then you it's just moving in the needle is moving towards you. It's still on seller technically, but it is moving towards you for sure.
Even with these interest rates too.
Yep.
I mean, even with the interest rates.
Well, and that's what, if you think about it, that makes sense though, right? With these interest rates, that's why it's negatively affecting sellers. Not to say it's positively affecting buyers, because obviously it's still a 7.02 interest rate today. It's a higher interest rate than we've seen in a while, right? It's, you've got inflation, everybody's talking about grocery store costs and stuff. People aren't wanting to spend as much money
Money's
as they
going
were.
all over the place.
Yep. Your money isn't worth quite what it was before. Those are all the things that are happening to the buyer, but that's why it's moving from a seller's market because it's no longer, there are less things that make it appealing to purchase. And so sellers don't have as much power.
Yeah, and there's less really strong buyers out there.
Yeah.
Like, how it is, where there's less and less, then all of a sudden you're the one that gets picked.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it can, it just feels very different. So with a lot of data points to talk about. So anyways, that's kind of that's my transitionary point to say, like we talked about supply, and this is kind of where between a supply and demand, all this kind of sits and how it overlaps. And so absorption rate's that. But again, we talked about demand. So interest rates have dropped in the last month. They're down 0.14%. So that's awesome. They are still up 0.1% since last year. But we're 7.02 today, which is where we expect to be kind of going into the end of the year.
Right.
Some people predict like high sixes, which is great. But Fannie Mae just redid their rate prediction for next year. They were thinking it was going to be like low sixes, or low sixes by, I think, anyways, we'll go look at this. But what they did is they changed it where instead of it being we're low sixes by middle of the year, middle to late, they see us basically doing a long transition from, high sixes to low sixes all throughout the course of 2025.
For the whole year?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you do work your way down, but it's a slow ride.
Yeah.
And then same thing. And then that's 2025. So that's what they just changed their prediction for. Obviously they've been wrong before.
Sure.
I wouldn't put stock on that. Ultimately what I would actually hear, if you read rate predictions, with how frequently they get revised, I would recommend you not really trust that. Yeah. Don't base your purchasing decision on rates and waiting for rates. And what I mean by that is that as long as it makes sense for your family to purchase and there's a reason for you to actually do that, I do think you want to go ahead and do it because that's what just makes sense for you to do it. Because rates aren't predicted. We can't predict them.
Right.
We can't play our game off of them. And ultimately, this, I know this. If you are waiting for rates, so is the rest of the world. And the second that you get into the market because of low rates, that market is no longer a almost balanced market. That market just flipped way back to seller market.
Right. That day.
That day. The day it dropped. And so
it's true. And, you've got some remedies for some of that are helpful.
Okay.
There's some loan assumptions. We're hearing a lot more about people starting to do that.
If you have not, it's not the right thing for everybody.
Right.
But
you have to have some cash.
Doing a loan assumption, I think, is a way to go back in time.
Yeah.
And grab that 3 to 4% interest rate. Now, it requires traditionally, it doesn't always do this. Traditionally, it's going to require you a higher upfront cost. Yeah. Because you kind of have to pay the seller's equity in the home. But yeah, if you can absorb somebody's loan, that's it can be a really sweet deal for certain. And you're going to get a 3% or 4% that they got when they bought it. That's a great deal.
Buy downs are still out there. So there's some things to help, if you decide it's time for you to move.
Yeah. And ultimately, with what's going on here, you also have access to more deals on the market.
Yes, absolutely.
You have access to getting properties for 10, 20K off if it's the right property. Not all properties are like this. But yeah. So anyways, I always like to just juxtapose how much it is to rent versus how much it is to own. So the average monthly payment, the way I calculate this is I look at our average close price, and then I just kind of put that through some guesstimations of kind of where it should be and run it through a mortgage calculator that I trust. You're looking at about $3,500 for your monthly payment for the average home in Tarrant, Johnson, a little bit of Parker, a little bit of Ellis. And so that's what's going on there. rent prices are down are up this month, but 2,688 is where those sit. So there's some $900 of difference. That's not. It's cheaper to rent right now. It just is.
Okay.
Now, what this doesn't show you is like the home that you get for 480, right? And that type of home that you're getting for that price. That may not be what you're getting with your rental, right? So there may be differences in the actual house you're inside, right?
Yeah.
It may be 2,600 for a 4-bed, 2-bath that's 2,200 square feet. But at the 480 mark, you're probably looking for something closer to like the 2,500 square feet, I would guess, just based on what I know about our area. And it could be an older build, could be a new build, whatever. So just know that. But rental prices, average monthly rents are up 2% month over month and up 1.5% year over year. So they have increased as well.
Okay.
So fun fact. I also mentioned the 3,500, by the way, that does include your insurance, your taxes, and a potential HOA if you had one.
So it's a full deal.
So it's your full deal, after everything. So, all right. Looking at kind of the what I like to track as far as demand goes and as far as what's affecting demand, there's this thing called the purchase application, mortgage application index, I think is what they call it, or purchase application index. And all it is it's just saying how many loans are being purchased, right? Every single day, or being applied for, right?
Applied for, yeah.
And so I like to track this. If you look at it, we're up 5.4% month over month. So there have been more.
I heard that in the news recently that there was really a little tick going up.
Yep. So, and you can see it. I mean, since basically May, the biggest tick happened from June 5th to June 12th. There was a big bump there. It went up basically 5 points, which is awesome. So there's been a bump in mortgage applications. Now, again, juxtaposing last year to this year, you're down 13% year over year. Purchase applications are down 13% year over year. And so that's something to be aware of as you consider that just shows us what's going on with demand. There's 13% less demand for loans. Now, I mean, we're not talking about cash deals, right? This is only tracking loans. This isn't tracking closings is where we'd see cash deals coming in, right? And the variance there. But yeah, this is just loans. I think it's, is it 80%? No, I'm not going to say it. I don't have to. I need to reference. I need to reference that. There's a stat that talks about how many homeowners have what percentage of homeowners typically use loans. And so we would need to get that to really speak to that. Inflation is kind of trending down. We got a big report in March at a 3.5%, but 3.3% in the month of May. We'll have June's and July 11th. So of this year.
It's kind of staying steady, isn't it?
It's doing okay. You know, we're down from 6.4% last year in January of 2023. The Fed's doing a great job. You know, ultimately the Fed makes our lives hard on the rate side of it, but y'all, like, they are doing an honorable work, which is fighting inflation. They're trying to do everything they can to keep our buying power from not being completely just destroyed, right? And to keep our money where it's useful. And so really, I've said this before on this podcast, if you are somebody who is advocating for lower rates and rate cuts, the reality is what the Fed wants to see in order to accomplish that, to be a drastic and quick move, would just be massive amounts of layoffs. And I don't know about you, I don't want that. Like, I want lower rates for sure, but I don't want people to be out of their jobs, massive amounts of people to be out of their jobs. And so we do appreciate the work the Fed is doing to accomplish this goal of reducing inflation.
Slowly.
It just is hard, obviously. Yeah. Real estate is such a rate-sensitive industry and marketplace. And so it's obviously making that hard. But current average days on market, if you were somebody who was getting into the market today, what would I show you? I'd look at average days on market. So 44 days on market. Anything above there, I'd want to make local note. I want to make sure that is what's happening locally first. But assuming it is, anything above 44 days on market, I'm going to start thinking deal. Yeah. Doesn't mean it is, but I'm going to start thinking it. I'm going to start thinking, we got options here because the average house is gone by now. Right. You're outside the norm. You're outside the norm. And so I've got some possibility here of maybe the seller as a buyer, if I'm thinking like a buyer, of the seller becoming a little more desperate, a little more, able to get a deal. If I am a seller who's gone past 44 days, I'm thinking either price cut if I need to gain that. I'm thinking is there something wrong with my home? You would know that by hearing the feedback you're getting from your showings.
Right.
And you should be tracking your showings and all that kind of stuff. But, what's the feedback I'm getting? Do I need to go ahead and move on one of those pieces of feedback? Do I need to go ahead? Everybody says when they walk in, it's that carpet stain right there. So maybe I need to get somebody out to get that carpet stain removed or whatever it is, right? So current days on market. Closed price to original price ratio. This very rarely variances, and I show this to say, like in Texas today, as a seller or a buyer, in Tarrant, Johnson, Parker, or Ellis, 98.5% is the average closed price to original price ratio, which means that homes are selling for 98.5% of their list price. Does that make sense? So just know that. That's a norm. If you are somebody who comes in and accepts, an offer for a $5K offer or something, just know that that's not unheard of. Not necessarily something that I recommend to do, to be clear. We want to know that situation, what's going on there. But
and that is an average.
Yeah, just know that average wise, homes do not sell for what they listed for. Yeah. So, and 98.5% is down. Last year was 99.3%, right? So it's down a full percent point. You're down 0.1% month over month. So
that's compared to 2021 when it was like 101.
Yes. Yeah, it's massive. Looking ahead, we track to predict kind of what's coming our way. We track pendings. So pending home sales. We have seen those basically be pretty level since April. They did drop just slightly, but nothing massively. So we've seen pretty consistent pendings going on. But obviously the ones that have actually made it to closing have been much less than these. So because we had 1,400 closings, right? So it's obviously been a little
which is a note that things are dropping out.
Big time. Yeah, absolutely, they're dropping out. Yeah, buyers are as a seller, buyers are a lot. We've been using this phrase internally. Buyers are spooked easier right now. So if I'm representing a seller, I've got to be really careful about the language that I say and how I talk to the other side, because buyers really do get spooked right now.
Yeah.
And you understand why. Like we've talked about all the things that are not in their favor, right, with this. So it makes sense, but just be aware of that. You want to be real kind of
gentle.
You're gentle, still representing your interests, to be clear. Still direct. But just gentle for sure.
It's good to have an agent who knows how to negotiate right now.
Yes, or just knows what we're talking about here in this podcast, that understands and is looking at the data and saying, here's what's happening in my local area.
And
because
preparing your client.
You don't know how many people don't do this, and this is something you really got to do. So, highly recommend it. Anyways, closing every single time, I like to just talk about how we have seen the real estate, the average close price rise since 2014 at $212,512 to all the way to today at $428,538. So that's a pretty dramatic increase over that time. Now that makes it harder for buyers, right? And buyers' homes are more expensive today.
Right.
This area is more expensive today.
But if the buyer can get in, what is it? When's the best time to buy a house?
Well, what are you going to say to this?
So it's that old, time to plant a tree, right? Best time to plant a tree is, 20 years ago.
Well,
What's the second best time? Today.
Yeah, today. It's got to make sense for the family. That's my only thing is it's just going to make sense for the family. So I don't want somebody getting locked into an interest rate that they can't actually afford and those kinds of things.
Sure.
But yeah, y'all, it's and this is the chart we talked about last week that I kept in here as well for this week, last month. The appreciation, first off, from the original charts outside of COVID years ranges from 3 to 9% every single year and averages around 6% appreciation rate. Okay. So first off, know that. That's a great stat to know. But y'all, every decade, if you look at the decades, you have seen as low as 30.1%. And that was from the 2000s to 2010s, right? So that had the great financial crisis in the middle of it.
Right.
Is that right? Is that 90s? No, I'm sorry. That was the 1990s. Excuse me. Great financial crisis had 47.3% appreciation over those 10 years, right? So real estate over 10-year period, it's a great investment.
And it tends to do well during crisis time.
Yeah, it survives it.
It comes back.
Yeah, it survives
with a bang.
Yeah, you have to wait it out. That's the thing. If you bought the year before and you sell the year after or whatever, that's a harder game to be sure of.
Timing is like the key.
Yes. All this to say, y'all, just to summarize everything going on, the reality of what's happening is that we are getting more to a balanced real estate market.
Mm-hmm.
This is a market that for sellers is a harder one to sell in than the previous markets that we've seen.
Absolutely.
It just is. And I want to be clear. It's not hard to sell. It has just moved in the direction of being more difficult, to be clear. It is not impossible. It is not even honestly hard to sell your home today. It is just, it has to be done with more detail orientation. Yeah. And it has to be done in a more delicate or a more strategic way than it used to have to be done. I mean, truly.
I think strategic is the
it has to be done in a strategic way. Then we'll say that. Buyers, you're the flip side of that conversation. This market has moved in your favor. Now, obviously, you have things working against you. You have interest rates, you have inflation, you have all these things that are working against you. But if it can make sense to purchase in this market, things have moved in your favor, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so you have more options on the market. You have more motivated sellers that you have access to get deals from on those things. So it's shifting right now. But to be clear, it hasn't moved to a buyer's market. It's moved to a balanced market. Yeah. What we're experiencing right now is really more of a typical average Tarrant County real estate market based on what's happening between supply and demand, to be clear. Right. Obviously, high interest rates, nobody likes that. Obviously, if we could just sell our houses for $1 million more than we bought them for, that'd be fantastic, right? So there are things that we would love to see on both ends, but this is activity-wise becoming pretty
well. And the cool
balanced
thing about being balanced is that if you have to both buy and sell, then you're not getting
that's a great point.
Gigged on one end and then great on another.
That's a great point.
It's going to be kind of a smooth ride on both ends of
absolutely.
It. So,
because that was the hardest part in 2021 and 2022. To sell was easy, but to buy was really difficult.
Really hard.
And so that's a great point. Yep.
It's just going to be a little easier in that fashion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Just rates being the only thing that changes. Your mortgage payment being the main thing that changes in the transition. So, all right, y'all. Well, if you have questions, again, this is a lot of data, a lot of stats. If you have questions about what this means for you and your real estate investment, let us know. We'd be glad to answer those questions for you. But we hope this has been helpful. We hope this helps you know what's actually going on in the real estate market. And so you can make an informed decision for what you want to do, or just be updated for, if you're just somebody who's like, I'd like to know what's going on. Yep. I hope this has been helpful. So,
absolutely.
Let us know if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out. We'd be glad to help you any way we can. But in the meantime, hope you have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Next time.
Hey, thank you so much for watching the podcast today. If this has been valuable for you at all, we sure could use your help getting the word out to more people. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go ahead and give us a follow and consider taking just maybe 2 minutes to leave us a review. Both do wonders for our show with the algorithm, and on both platforms, all you got to do, head over to our show page. On Spotify, hit 3 dots and select rate. And on Apple, all you got to do is just scroll down to the show and say leave a review. So just click that. If you're seeing this on Facebook or Instagram, a like or comment puts all the good vibes out in the algorithm for us. And on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever we post a new episode. Join us again next week for more Fort Worth housing news and updates. Until then, y'all have a great week.